and welcome to The Week That Was, TIOL's weekly news roundup. Today we introduce some quick news highlights of the week, followed by the news in detail. Is it judicial interference or intervention? Driving the wedge deeper into executive-judiciary relations, the Chief Justice of India, Mr. T.S. Thakur, has stated that if the government wants less judicial interference, it needs to have a litigation policy so that people are not forced to approach the courts. The judiciary does its duty and intervenes only when the executive fails in its constitutional duties.
The Cost Inflation Index for Long-Term Capital Gains Calculation. To compute the indexed cost of acquisition, the government has notified 1125 as the Cost Inflation Index for 2016 to 17 to be used in the computation of long-term capital gains. As per Section 48 of the Income Tax Act, the indexed cost of acquisition is to be deducted from the sale consideration to arrive at the taxable capital gains.
Swiss voters have rejected the Switzerland government's proposal to introduce a guaranteed basic income for everyone. Switzerland is the first country in the world to even hold such a vote, following concerns about the future of work at a time of increasing automation.
Cyprus DTAA to be amended. After Mauritius, Indian bureaucrats are working double time to curb illicit fund flows by modifying double taxation agreements with various countries like Singapore and Cyprus. Cyprus is very close to revising the bilateral tax treaty with India following its in-principle acceptance of the amendment proposals made by the Indian side on taxing capital gains. Now for the news in detail. Often certain events come back to haunt us, as it did for the Income Tax Department.
How the Income Tax Department has earned its reputation of being presumptuous, coercing, and open to the use of strong-arm tactics came up before the Delhi High Court recently, which has ruled against the department. In December 1998, the department cornered the Latin rock star Ricky Martin at Hotel Radisson in Delhi after his live performance in the city and coerced him to make a statement against Sony Music India under threat that he would not be allowed to leave India until he signed the statement under oath. Ricky Martin was compelled to state that he had a contract with Sony India for his live performance in India and for sale of music CDs and cassettes. The IT department believed that Sony India was evading tax on its earnings as a result of the agreements signed between Ricky Martin and the Sony Corporation of America. It presumed that there was a corresponding agreement between Sony India, a subsidiary of Sony America, and Ricky Martin. On the basis of Ricky Martin's statement, the department issued letters, summons, and notices against Sony India and even compelled the company to furnish a guarantee agreeing to meet any tax demand that may become payable as a result of Ricky Martin's performance in the city. However, after Ricky Martin reached home, he wrote a letter to the Deputy Commissioner Income Tax, pointing out that the statement was extracted from him and he had no such contract with Sony Music India. Immediately, Sony India filed a writ petition before the Delhi High Court for withdrawal of all cases which have been pending for 17 years as the case was under investigation. The Delhi High Court observed that the department had not brought any evidence on record in these 17 years to show that there was any contract between Sony India and Ricky Martin. All summons, notices and letters issued to Sony India were quashed. Even the guarantee furnished by the company was ruled to have been discharged. Has the department really changed?
Interpol has raised queries on the request of India's Enforcement Directorate to issue a red corner notice against Mallya, the liquor baron hiding out in UK to avoid arrest in India. The red corner notice, which is akin to an international arrest warrant, is requested to seek the extradition of a wanted person in a criminal case. But Interpol has again raised queries on the evidence available against Mallya, who are the other accused persons in the case, and details of the offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, besides the delay in investigations. Interpol also wants to hear Mallya's version before considering a red corner notice from India. The Enforcement Directorate claims to have already submitted all the investigation details to Interpol. Even last time in the case of former IPL chief Mr. Lalit Modi, Interpol raised several queries citing lack of evidence to issue a wanted notice against Modi. How fair is Interpol? Any checks? The CBDT has issued a clarification on the recent amendments made to Section 206C of the Income Tax Act.
The CBDT has finally answered queries relating to the amendment of the provisions of Section 206C of the Income Tax Act with effect from June 1, 2016 as introduced by the Finance Act 2016. To reduce cash transactions in the sale of goods and services, the amendment brings under the tax net all cash transactions of Rs 2 lakh and above and high-value transactions of sale of motor vehicles of Rs 10 lakh or more, where the seller is required to collect 1% of the sale consideration as tax from the buyer. Due to the apparent conflict between subsections 1D and 1F of Section 206C, the board has now clarified that any sale of motor vehicles exceeding Rs 10 lakh shall attract tax collection at source at the rate of 1% irrespective of the mode of payment, that is, whether the payment is made in cash or cheque. The tax under subsection 1F of Section 206C will be levied on the total sale consideration of Rs 10 lakh and above, even if part payment of Rs 2 lakh or more is made in cash. An individual audited under Section 44AB shall also be liable for tax collection at source on a motor vehicle of Rs 10 lakh or more sold by him. Tax collection under subsection 1D is required to be made even if the total sale consideration of the motor vehicle is less than Rs 10 lakhs, but it is made in cash of Rs 2 lakh or more. While the tax collection will apply to sale transactions at the retail level, it does not cover sale of motor vehicles by the manufacturer to the dealer or distributors. It will also not apply to sale by notified government institutions, embassies and trade representation of a foreign state, as provided under subsection 1D and 1F of Section 206C. The Kerala High Court bench recused itself after an attempt to bribe one of the judges.
The Kerala High Court bench recused itself from hearing a gold smuggling case after an attempt was made to bribe one of the judges. The bench with Justices Mr. K.T. Sankaran and Mr. A. Hari Prasad were considering 8 petitions filed by those accused of smuggling gold worth about Rs 400 crore during a 2-year period. The smuggling racket operated with the aid of airport staff and immigration officials at Nedambussery Airport. Justice Sankaran informed the court that somebody known to him had contacted him on telephone and offered a payment of Rs 25 lakh initially and a blank cheque upon delivering a favourable ruling for Yasir Mohammed, the key accused in the racket. The judge acknowledged that this could be a deliberate attempt to get him recused from the case. The bench recused itself without passing any speaking order, and the persons who tried to bribe the judge seem to have gone scot-free. Niti Aayog's recipe for change.
Niti Aayog, the government's think tank, has suggested a 10-year tax holiday for companies investing $1 billion in setting up electronic manufacturing in India, which would be expected to create 20,000 jobs. In its draft report on Make in India Strategy for Electronic Products, the Niti Aayog has advised an export-oriented strategy to boost India's domestic electronics market through free trade agreements to make the industry globally competitive. It has also suggested setting up coastal economic zones with minimal red tape and flexible labor and land acquisition laws, easy entry and exit of firms besides swift environmental clearances. The Apex Consumer Court hauled up DLF to compensate its allottees.
The National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission has directed DLF to hand over possession of flats to 50 allottees in its DLF Valley project in Panchkula by November end this year, failing which it would have to pay Rs 5,000 for each day of further delay. The bench comprising Justice J.M. Malik and Dr. S.M. Kantikar warned the company that it will have to immediately pay each allottee 12% interest on their investment per annum 3 years from the date of allotment till the possession is given. This is in addition to a compensation of Rs 30,000 to each allottee as litigation charges and for facing mental agony. DLF had launched the housing project in 2010 and promised to give possession within 2 years but kept extending the deadline. The builder had even argued that the flat buyers were not consumers and many of them already had more than one house. Whether the RBI governor stays or goes, here is RBI's agenda for India.
The RBI governor, Mr. Raghuram Rajan, is in the news for the wrong reasons. He has clarified that his work of cleaning up banks' balance sheets shall continue and go on till March 2017. His other longer-term tasks include development of a corporate bond market, increased participation in other financial markets, and financial inclusion, which is an unfinished agenda. He is also against banks taking on a majority stake in stressed assets funds, which is unwise and unwarranted. Instead, he suggests it would be appropriate to take on a minority ownership with a number of other players coming in addition to the government, to provide capacity, especially in the management of stressed assets. Like most of his predecessors, Rajan too is slated for an extension after his 3-year term concludes in September 2016. This decision to be taken by the Prime Minister may be announced just days before the RBI governor's term officially ends. Meanwhile, there are strong rumors in bureaucratic circles that former Economic Affairs Secretary Mr. Shaktikanta Das is in the race for Mr. Rajan's post. What can TRAI do with mobile operators who fail to provide quality services?
The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is concerned that the most mobile operators fail to provide quality network services. It has therefore sought more powers to be able to penalize those operators who fail to meet quality benchmarks. The TRAI is also preparing to initiate an inquiry into the use of radio link timeout technology used by telecom operators for masking call drops that result in a higher bill for subscribers. Radio link technology is one of the parameters to decide for how long the call may be sustained if the signal quality drops below a certain threshold. In Delhi, Aircel and Vodafone have been using RLT beyond the levels their peers follow. The TRAI had a setback when the Supreme Court recently quashed the rule that required telecom operators to compensate consumers for call drops. Also, disputes between telecom operators and subscribers cannot be taken up by consumer courts as special remedy is available under the Indian Telegraph Act. We now conclude this bulletin of the week that was. Thank you for watching.
You may write to us at editor@tiol.in. Have a cheerful weekend ahead.